Alabama beat Tennessee in the third Saturday in October last night, 37-20. Let me set the table here. I would call this a three-chally game. Pretty entertaining. How do I know? We were there. How is that? I thought the Fall Don't Lie tour was at Vanderbilt yesterday. It was. However, some of you may or may not know that I have entered into wedlock with Savannah State, who worked for a long time in Alabama. And so when our game is done by 2 o'clock Central, and there's another game in Tuscaloosa, Alabama that doesn't kick off until 6:30, and we know we can get down there, it turns out we're going. So we were down there. That wasn't a ghost. That was me. A lot of you guys interacted with last night. I wish people could experience these games. Neyland Stadium at night's amazing. Bryant-Denny's amazing. Sanford Stadium a few weeks ago, amazing. And then you go to like Penn State, you go to Ann Arbor, Eugene, like these places at night. As much as your guy here loves a good big noon kickoff, there is a lot of merit to witnessing these places at night. And in this game in particular, you've got the cigar tradition. And in this game in particular, when it's a 3-possession game, they don't wait until the end of the game to smoke the cigars. I had Bradley with me, his first Alabama game, and poor little Bradley still coughing today from smoke inhalation. And I'm a veteran of this game, so I've seen it in both buildings before. Bradley was not ready. It looked like a little fawn smelling cigar smoke in an open building like that for the first time. So it was a good night for Alabama. This run that Kalen DeBoer is on is pretty amazing. Hey, really quick timeout. We'll get right back to the video. Do me one favor. Make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep the show free. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep doing college football year-round, and we appreciate it. All right, back to the video. It's the Sunday after week 1, the Sunday after Bama lost to Florida State. I remember what I thought. Do you remember what you thought? Because I thought, this is devastating. Number one, because I questioned the competitive character of the team. I didn't take that back. I just have been given plenty enough results to no longer question that. But, I mean, we had a 1-week sample size. Like, what else were we supposed to do? So the reason that was so devastating is because you looked at this string of games that was going to come up. They were going to go at Georgia, Vandy, at Missouri, Tennessee, and that's a 4-game stretch there. And we thought South Carolina was going to be better than they are, and that's still a tough game this Saturday. They got to go to at South Carolina. You asked yourself, you've removed a lot of your margin for error. How are you going to be able to go through this stretch and win every game? Well, it turns out by winning every game. At Georgia, Vandy, at Missouri, Tennessee, DeBoer now 19-3 in his career against ranked teams. It is in some ways, the anti-James Franklin sort of stat that they can throw in your face. The other names on this all-time head coach record versus AP ranked teams, Frank Leahy, Pete Carroll, Urban Meyer, and Ryan Day on there. Just skipped right over poor Jock Sutherland. So yeah, they're doing okay there. And you know what they do? They keep adding layers. Alabama keeps adding layers to their game. We always talk about this, the contenders that end up being there at the end of the season. One of the hallmarks is if you go back in time, if you play their season in reverse, it's almost like watching a book and you're flipping pages backwards because you're watching as the season went on, they added depth, they added layers, they added pages to their book, so to speak. So early on, we were questioning the Alabama pass rush. Remember that? Well, last night, 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss the last couple of weeks. They've had Keon Keeley come on. Last night, Yanze Pierre looks like he's just shot out of a cannon. He's been pressed. He's been forced into action a little bit more. And we talked about that group of former 4- and 5-star guys in their 2 deep in the front 7 preseason. One of the big questions we had about Bama was, where's the pass rush going to come from? There's no Dallas Turner, as we can see it. There's no Will Anderson, as we can see it. Where's it going to come from? Starting to show up more and more. Thus, the layering. I continue. They didn't give up a single sack last night. Tennessee had done very well in that category. And that offensive line, now, they weren't road graders. They weren't opening up gashes in the run game, but man, they, for the most part, gave Ty Simpson time to work. And then another layer that they started to add more and more, and continued last night, is they've sort of come out flat in second halves. The Georgia game, they needed a shutout in the second half because they didn't really score. Last week against Missouri, they didn't do a whole lot in the second half. Well, last night, They had 99 and 75-yard touchdown drives in the second half. So again, there was no one thing I just listed there that's like night and day different than what Alabama's been. They just keep adding layers. And I am a big believer, as you look at what they did offensively last night, that we have not really seen their offensive ceiling yet. And the reason I put it that way is because Ty Simpson had a good night again. He was 19 of 29, 253, had a couple of touchdowns. It's interesting, their longest play was 31 yards, but they had 11 plays of 15-plus yards. And they still couldn't run the ball traditionally. I mean, they have to scratch and claw to get 100 yards rushing. So there's no traditional ground game. Jeremy Bernard was their leading rusher, I think, Jesse. Yeah, he was their leading rusher. And yet still, the offensive numbers scale, which is really hard to do unless you got a heck of a quarterback. You got a really, really good stable of wide receivers, and they continue to be able to scale their production, even though they don't really have a great ground game. Ryan Williams last night, hands, catching the ball. I talked to Jamarcus Shepard after the game on the field there, wide receivers coach at Alabama. He said he didn't drop a ball all week. He didn't drop a ball in pregame until the last one we threw to him. He dropped it and then said, okay, let's go. He looked great last night. He didn't have a catch last week. And he looked great last night, but Latsier Brooks, young guy, he started to come on more and more. Rico Scott, one of the favorites of this show, has started to come on a little bit more. Again, just layers being added. So then you ask yourself, all right, well, what can the offense become? To me, the offense becomes whatever the ground game allows it to become. Now, without the ground game, we see the potential. With the ground game, which I don't think is showing up right now, but could theoretically probably wait until after the Carolina game and the bye week and then November to show up. That's really what will unlock the full potential of that offense to me. But with Tennessee, I was talking to some people last night on the sideline, and they said, do you kind of feel like something's missing from Tennessee? Not a bad game. Like offensively, it wasn't a bad game. There were some very bad decisions made, but it wasn't like they got stuffed or anything. But I said, yeah, I feel like something's missing. I think it's called your quarterback bailed on you after spring, and your old offensive coordinator turned out to be a bona fide head coach, a star head coach in the making in Alex Golesh. And two of those commodities have been plucked from that program the last couple of years, and you don't just blindly backfill there. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. You don't. So when we came into the season, I was a little down on Tennessee relative to the public, relative to Tennessee fans. And we're kind of sitting here in the balance right now of who's right, because they do have a more workable schedule. They always did. But this is kind of what my thinking was. And it was, there's certainly a defensive step back coming this year. And it's been a fairly substantial setback. And they've had a lot of injury, too, to deal with. But, Alex Golesh is just hard to replace. It's been a couple of years now, but he's hard to replace. Losing your quarterback after spring ball, it's hard. It's just hard to deal with that stuff. So what they haven't done is they haven't had that year where you blend a great offense and a great defense. We had the Hendon Hooker year and great offense, defense, And then you got like the Joe Milton year, and you got last year where defense was great. But this year's the year where I could use the dominant defense, and it's not there necessarily. So one thing before we move on here, it was a great atmosphere last night. Unbelievable atmosphere. I mean, I don't know how you get much better for Alabama just in terms of like recruiting and spectacle and stuff like that. But as great as that was, I was listening to the post game last night. I was listening to Kalen DeBoer talk about how after the Missouri game, they didn't really even need to talk about the 24-hour rule. You know, that's the rule where when you win a game, you get to enjoy it for 24 hours, then you move on. Well, he said last night, we didn't really even have to enforce it. We went up there and beat Missouri, but guys were already locked in. They were ready to go for this Tennessee game. Well, buddy, I was around them a fair amount last night. They celebrated that Tennessee game. They don't have a bye next week. They go to South Carolina. And that's the last game in this string of games. And that's the one that's going to be overlooked because South Carolina has struggled mightily as of late. And they're off the radar, and October is canceled. Well, let me just remind you of something. Alabama as a double-digit favorite on the road has been terrible. Okay? This is my national championship pick, so I cannot have this happen. So if anyone needs to doubt them, I'll suck it up. I'll doubt him. You got a bye week on deck, still a little banged up. You're going on the road, obvious wounded animal spot for the home underdog here. You're a double-digit favorite. Teams have victimized you multiple times already in DeBoer's tenure at Alabama. So I think Cocktober is canceled, but Cocktober could come right back to life Saturday. Okay, by my calendar, it's still going to be October, thus Cocktober. You're going to play in Columbia. They need to save their season. Let's just be careful. How about that?